What if I told you that the wildest heroes of the 70s didn't wear capes from Marvel or DC, but came from Saturday morning fever dreams that defied logic and reason? These weren't just cartoons, they were psychedelic parades of weirdness that melted minds and confused parents. Some vanished without explanation, others became cult whispers across decades. Let's dive into the strangest forgotten faces of 70s animation history. Number 17. The Mighty Orbots, 1979. When it debuted, the Mighty Orbots looked like a bold answer to Japan's mecha invasion. It was bright, futuristic, and full of swagger. The show followed a team of transforming robots led by Rob Simmons, battling intergalactic villains with laser precision. Yet beneath the flash and metallic heroism lurked chaos. The designs borrowed heavily from anime aesthetics long before Western studios fully embraced it. Fans who tuned in were divided. Some praised its bold colors and kinetic storytelling, while others found it overwhelming, a sugar rush of steel and noise. Critics labeled it too Japanese for American kids' television. Lawsuits over design similarities to Go Lion, the series that would later inspire Voltron, further doomed the show's survival. By the end of its first season, the Orbots vanished from airwaves like cosmic dust. Behind the scenes, animators faced brutal schedules and cross-continental coordination issues. Production costs spiraled as staff struggled to sync Japanese animation sequences with American scripts. Networks grew uneasy at the growing influence of imported art styles, and the series was quietly buried under newer, safer shows. Today, fragments of its brilliance survive online, uploaded by loyal fans who refuse to let its glowing circuits fade. The Mighty Orbots stands as a futuristic fossil of the 70s, a moment when East met West in an electric dream that the world wasn't ready to understand. Number 16. Wheelie and the Chopper Bunch, 1974. In a decade obsessed with muscle cars and motorcycles, Hanna-Barbera created something strange, even by their wild standards. Wheelie, a sentient red Volkswagen Beetle, lived in a cartoon world of talking machines, hunted constantly by a gang of rowdy motorbikes known as the Chopper Bunch. It sounded like a child's fantasy, but the result was something feverish and absurd. The show mixed slapstick racing gags with bizarre moral lessons about teamwork and forgiveness. Yet audiences found the humor oddly mechanical. Critics said it lacked human connection, while children were simply confused by the endless horn-honking and tire-screeching dialogue. Some TV stations even pulled reruns after parents complained about its noisy, aggressive tone. Behind the scenes, Hanna-Barbera's team battled budget cuts and recycled animation frames from earlier hits. The studio wanted to cash in on automotive craze, sparked by Herbie the Love Bug, but misjudged the balance between charm and chaos. Animators reportedly groaned as executives demanded more vroom-vroom action and less story. Wheelie and the Chopper Bunch burned brightly, then crashed spectacularly after just one season. Today, it exists as a bizarre relic of corporate panic when studios tried to mechanize comedy. Watching it now feels like glimpsing a scrapyard of lost imagination where engines roared, but souls were missing. Number 15. Devlin, 1974. Before Evel Knievel action figures filled toy shelves, there was Devlin, a cartoon daredevil who rode his motorcycle through explosions and tragedy. Produced by Hanna-Barbera, the series followed Ernie Devlin and his siblings as they toured America, performing dangerous stunts while confronting emotional turmoil. It was darker, more grounded, and far riskier than anything else on Saturday mornings. Yet the realism that made it special also sealed its doom. Parents complained that the show glorified reckless behavior, and network censors panicked after real-world stunt accidents hit headlines. Devlin's moral messages about courage, responsibility, and family were lost amid fear of lawsuits. Several planned episodes featuring fatal injuries and trauma were rewritten into bland safety lectures. Behind the curtain, animators pushed for cinematic realism, drawing every stunt with painful accuracy inspired by Knievel's infamous crashes. But ABC executives grew nervous about its tone, calling it too adult for kids, yet too childish for adults. Ratings plunged, Within a year, Devlin was gone, replaced by lighter fare like Hong Kong Phooey. Today, collectors cherish its rare VHS tapes, and online archives whisper of its haunting themes of bravery and failure. Devlin remains the fallen stuntman of 70s animation, a hero who flew too close to the flame and paid the price in dust, smoke, and forgotten glory. Number 14. Fangface, 1978. Scooby-Doo might have ruled Saturday mornings, but Fangface howled louder in its own weird way. Created by Ruby Spears after their split from Hanna-Barbera, the show followed a group of teens who solved crimes with the help of their friend Sherman Fangsworth, who transformed into a werewolf whenever he saw the moon. On paper, it sounded like pure fun. On screen, it was unhinged lunacy. Unlike Scooby-Doo's mystery charm, Fangface relied on manic chaos. Sherman's transformations caused disasters rather than solving mysteries. The animation stuttered wildly between horror parody and slapstick mayhem. Audiences couldn't tell whether it was mocking monster movies or paying tribute to them. Some critics called it a low-budget fever dream, while others praised it as a daring experiment in cartoon absurdity. Behind the scenes, Ruby Spears reportedly fought network executives who wanted the show toned down for younger viewers. Some early storyboards included mild horror sequences and gothic set pieces that were later censored. Scripts were rewritten overnight to remove frightening elements. The result was a show caught between two worlds, not scary enough for teens, not silly enough for kids. Still, Fangface earned a small cult following. Fans loved its Halloween energy and manic voice acting. It ran for 2 seasons before vanishing like moonlight at dawn. Today, Fangface exists in the twilight zone of nostalgia, remembered by a few die-hard fans who still claim it was the strangest werewolf to ever chase clues across Saturday morning TV. Number 13. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kids, 1973. Long before boy bands ruled MTV, Hanna-Barbera tried to blend bubblegum pop with crime fighting. The result was Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kids, a psychedelic mess of music mystery and mod fashion. The series imagined a teen rock group who moonlighted as secret agents under the guidance of a computer called Mr. Socrates. It sounded wild, and it was. Viewers were baffled by its tone. 1 minute, the band performed catchy tunes in glittering discos. The next, they battled smugglers and spies. Critics joked that the show felt like the Partridge Family on acid. Animation errors where rampant guitars vanished between frames, villains appeared out of thin air, and dialogue didn't sync with the lips. Yet its theme song remained catchy enough to outlive the chaos. Behind the scenes, the production team faced relentless studio interference. Executives wanted to cash in on the popularity of Scooby-Doo and Josie and the Pussycats, but also demanded something more futuristic. That led to rewrites mid-production, where scripts were chopped in half to fit musical interludes. Voice actors often didn't know which version of the episode would air. After one confusing season, the series vanished without warning. Still, its legacy lingers as a time capsule of 70s weirdness when studios believed rock music and espionage could share the same beat. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kids stands today as proof that sometimes television gets too groovy for its own good. Number 12. Goober and the Ghostchasers, 1973. Imagine Scooby-Doo cloned, then handed over to a ghost-obsessed mad scientist. That's Goober and the Ghostchasers. Produced by Hanna-Barbera, it featured a transparent ghost hunting dog named Goober who turned invisible when scared. The show mixed celebrity cameos with ghostly comedy, blending mystery tropes with slapstick that defied logic. Each episode followed a group of reporters from Ghostchasers magazine investigating supernatural cases, often accompanied by cartoon versions of pop idols, like the Partridge Family. The result was part mystery, part promotion, part psychedelic hallucination. Viewers were confused and critics brutal. One reviewer claimed watching it felt like being haunted by sponsorship deals. Behind the scenes, the animation team recycled assets from multiple Scooby-Doo episodes to save money. Backgrounds, ghost designs, and even chase music were repurposed wholesale. The result was a patchwork of familiar gags stitched together under new names. Despite these shortcuts, production schedules lagged, and the network demanded constant rewrites to feature guest stars who didn't even record new lines. Goober's invisibility gag became both its trademark and its downfall. The special effect of fading Goober out mid-scene caused technical delays and added costs that doomed later episodes. The series ended quietly after one season. Yet, for all its failures, it remains a surreal reflection of 70s television excess where creativity met commercial chaos head-on. Goober and the Ghostchasers didn't just chase ghosts, it became one, fading into history as a spectral reminder of the decade's strangest experiments in animation. Number 11. Jabberjaw, 1976. There are strange cartoons, and then there is Jabberjaw, a talking shark with a drum kit and a bad attitude. Created by Hanna-Barbera during their wild experimental streak, it mashed Scooby-Doo with Jaws and rock and roll. The show followed a band called the Neptunes, who toured underwater cities, fighting injustice and cracking terrible jokes, while Jabberjaw complained about never getting respect. It was loud, colorful, and deeply bizarre. Critics could not tell if it was satire or madness. The show blended slapstick with underwater sci-fi in a world of bubble domes and sea police. Jabberjaw's voice was modeled after Curly from the Three Stooges, which made every scene sound like an aquatic meltdown. Some loved its energy, others found it unbearable chaos. Behind the scenes, the show was born out of panic. After Jaws became a cultural phenomenon, networks demanded a friendly shark show. Hanna-Barbera answered with a fast turnaround series built from recycled animation templates. Animators reportedly finished entire scenes in days, leaving awkward errors like instruments floating mid-water or mouths moving after dialogue ended. Censors grew uneasy, too. Some episodes included violent sea creatures and underwater explosions, toned down in later reruns. By 1977, Jabberjaw had sunk beneath the waves. Yet decades later, he resurfaced as a cult icon, appearing in parody cameos on Cartoon Network. Jabberjaw remains a symbol of that glorious 70s insanity when even a shark could front a rock band. Number 10. Clue Club, 1976. Clue Club was the forgotten cousin of Scooby-Doo's Mystery Family. It featured two teenagers, a pair of precocious kids and talking bloodhounds who solved crimes across small-town America. On the surface, it was formulaic, but the tone was oddly eerie. Unlike its cousins, this show played the mystery straight with episodes involving actual danger thefts and disappearances. It was smarter than most Saturday morning cartoons, but that intelligence worked against it. Kids tuned out when dialogue got heavy, with deduction scenes. Parents, meanwhile, were uneasy about the darker tone. One episode involved counterfeiters threatening the heroes with real weapons, which alarmed censors. The result was a strange push and pull between clever writing and family-friendly pressure. Behind the scenes, animators worked overtime to deliver realistic environments based on real Californian towns. This detail made it feel almost too grounded. Ratings lagged, and CBS soon retooled it into reruns within their anthology show, The Skatebirds, where Clue Club footage was awkwardly edited with slapstick bird cartoons. The creative team was furious but powerless to stop it. Today, Clue Club survives as a ghost of potential a detective show too mature for its target audience and too silly for adults. Fans still rediscover its quiet brilliance online, praising its noir atmosphere and surprising emotional depth. It stands as proof that not every mystery needs a laugh track. Some just need time to be understood. Number 9. Hong Kong Phooey, 1974. Before superheroes ruled the screen, there was a janitor named Penry who turned into Hong Kong Phooey, a kung fu crime fighter armed with a handbook he barely understood. It was part parody, part cultural time capsule, and fully absurd. The show mixed martial arts slapstick and jazz funk into a swirl of nonsense that somehow became iconic. When it aired, audiences loved its rhythm, but critics bristled at the stereotypes. The series tried to celebrate martial arts mania, sweeping the 70s, yet its tone veered dangerously close to caricature. Later reviewers called it both charming and embarrassing, a relic of cultural confusion. Still, Scatman Crothers' smooth voice work gave Phooey a swagger no one could deny. Behind the scenes, the production was plagued by chaos. The martial arts craze had exploded overnight, and Hanna-Barbera rushed the show into production without consulting martial arts experts. Fight sequences made no sense, and physics were an afterthought. Animators joked that Phooey's moves looked like laundry in motion. The censors trimmed scenes deemed too violent for Saturday mornings, forcing the team to replace punches with dust clouds and jazz riffs. Despite the confusion, Hong Kong Phooey became a pop phenomenon. Merchandising flooded shelves, and its theme song still grooves through nostalgia playlists today. But its legacy is complicated, equal parts fun and foolishness. Hong Kong Phooey remains the kung fu janitor who mopped his way into history and left behind a bucket full of cultural contradictions. Number 8. The Roman Holidays, 1972. Imagine the Flintstones moved to ancient Rome and traded cars for chariots. That was the Roman Holidays, a Hanna-Barbera experiment in historical comedy that defied both reason and ratings. It followed the Holiday family struggling through daily life under Emperor Augustus, complete with Stone Age gadgets reimagined as Roman contraptions. It was clever, ambitious, and utterly strange. When it aired, critics didn't know what to make of it. Some praised its witty wordplay, others found it desperate, recycling Flintstones jokes in togas. Viewers were confused too. The show tried to teach mild history lessons while also including talking lions and slave jokes that aged poorly. It was meant for families, but too weird for children and too silly for adults. Behind the scenes, animators pushed themselves to create elaborate Roman backdrops with grand temples and marble detail rarely seen in television cartoons of the era. However, the effort exhausted the team and budgets soared. Networks panicked when the ratings came back dismal. Sponsors demanded lighter content, forcing last-minute script rewrites that gutted historical references in favor of simple gags. The Roman Holidays lasted barely one season before fading from the schedule. Yet its ambition haunts animation historians. It dared to turn the ancient world into a laugh-track sitcom before anyone else did. Today, it lives as a curious artifact, a reminder that sometimes creativity burns brightest right before extinction. Number 7. Captain Caveman and the Teen Angels, 1977. Few cartoons captured the chaos of 70s animation like Captain Caveman. A hairy prehistoric superhero frozen in ice and revived by 3 young detectives, the show mashed together Scooby-Doo Charlie's Angels and total madness. Captain Caveman carried clubs that could produce gadgets defying physics. Every episode descended into mayhem before ending with a triumphant yell that shook the speakers. Audiences either loved or loathed it. Children adored its manic energy, while adults found it exhausting. Critics accused it of being derivative, a prehistoric remix of Scooby-Doo with louder sound effects. Yet the show's sheer weirdness made it unforgettable. The heroes' constant screaming and impossible powers became both a joke and a trademark. Behind the scenes, Hanna-Barbera's studio was stretched thin, juggling multiple series at once. Animators reportedly drew scenes in record time, reusing frames across episodes. Some insiders claimed that voice actor Mel Blanc's improvisations were what truly held the show together. The production chaos mirrored the story's energy, unpredictable, wild, and barely controlled. Though it ran only a few seasons, Captain Caveman refused to die. He returned in spin-offs, crossovers, and even the Flintstone comedy show. Fans today remember him as the screaming embodiment of 70s excess. Captain Caveman stands as a fossilized monument to when cartoons stopped trying to make sense and just went feral. Number 6. The Funky Phantom, 1971. If Scooby-Doo had a ghostly twin, it was the Funky Phantom. The show featured a trio of teenagers who accidentally released the ghost of a Revolutionary War soldier named Jonathan Wellington Muddlemore and his ghost cat, Boo. Together they solved mysteries across America, while the Phantom offered historical quips and slapstick scares. It was as patriotic as it was ridiculous. Critics dismissed it as a transparent Scooby clone, but its bizarre charm attracted curious viewers. The ghost spoke like Snagglepuss, mixing colonial slang with vaudeville delivery. Children loved the talking cat and the spooky theme tune, but the show's historical angle confused others. Each episode squeezed in awkward moral lessons about freedom and justice. Behind the scenes, the Funky Phantom was rushed through production to capitalize on the mystery trend. Animators recycled music and sound effects directly from Scooby-Doo. Scripts were edited overnight to include ghost jokes in every scene. Some early episodes even repeated animation frames multiple times to meet deadlines. Despite the shortcuts, the cast gave their all, bringing absurd sincerity to spectral nonsense. The Funky Phantom vanished after one season, yet his spirit lingered in reruns throughout the decade. Today, it stands as one of Hanna-Barbera's strangest creations, a ghost who refused to rest in peace. The Funky Phantom remains a misty echo from a time when even America's founding fathers couldn't escape the laugh track. Number 5. Valley of the Dinosaurs, 1974. Before The Land of the Lost, there was Valley of the Dinosaurs, a Saturday morning saga that blended prehistoric fantasy with family survival. The story followed the Butler family who fell through a whirlpool while rafting and found themselves trapped in a hidden world filled with cavemen and giant beasts. It was ambitious for its time, both educational and wildly imaginative. At first, audiences were intrigued. The show tried to balance dinosaur adventure with moral lessons about cooperation and respect for nature. But soon, critics mocked its slow pacing and repetitive plots. Each episode ended the same way, with the family narrowly surviving disaster before returning to their cave for a moral speech. Children wanted dinosaurs fighting, not lectures on teamwork. Behind the scenes, Filmation's rival studio, Hanna-Barbera, struggled to bring prehistoric realism to television on a shoestring budget. Animators reused walking cycles and background art across episodes. The sound effects were borrowed from other series, including Godzilla cartoons. Despite the constraints, the creators dreamed big, drawing on real paleontological research. But executives slashed their more violent ideas, fearing parental backlash. The show quietly disappeared after 16 episodes. Yet decades later, fans rediscovered it online, calling it a lost gem of sincerity and heart. Valley of the Dinosaurs was ahead of its time, a show that dared to teach empathy in a world of monsters. Its message still echoes today, reminding us that sometimes the wildest survival stories come from the softest hearts. Number 4. Speed Buggy, 1973. When Hanna-Barbera wanted to capitalize on Carmania, they dreamed up Speed Buggy, a talking dune buggy with a stutter and a personality that mixed goofiness with heart. The premise was simple: a team of racers traveling the world solving crimes and entering competitions, while Speed Buggy sputtered his way through danger. But nothing about it was truly simple. Viewers couldn't decide if it was charming or insane. The humor bounced between automotive puns and slapstick chaos. The show's futuristic gadgets contrasted with its beach party vibe, creating a surreal mix of hippie optimism and mechanical madness. Some critics called it a Scooby-Doo knockoff on wheels. Others praised its kinetic animation and surprisingly emotional moments. Behind the curtain, animators faced impossible schedules. Each race sequence required hundreds of moving parts to animate by hand. The team worked overnight to simulate high-speed action without digital help. Sound engineers layered engine roars over laughter tracks to fill the silence of empty frames. The result was both innovative and exhausting. Speed Buggy ran for only one season, but found a cult audience overseas, particularly in Latin America, where it aired for decades. Today, it represents that golden era when studios believed machines could feel emotions. In its own awkward mechanical way, Speed Buggy proved that even engines could have souls. Number 3. Inch-High Private Eye, 1973. At a time when spy mania ruled pop culture, one studio took the concept to absurd extremes. Inch-High Private Eye told the tale of a miniature detective barely an inch tall who solved crimes with his niece and their pet dog, Braveheart. His tiny size gave him access to secrets others could not see, but also made him the butt of endless jokes. The show's premise was clever, but its execution wobbled between genius and madness. Animation errors constantly shifted Inch's height. In one scene, he stood on a desk. In the next, he towered over furniture. Kids laughed, adults rolled their eyes. Critics accused the show of lazy writing, yet praised its originality. Behind the scenes, the production team battled constant creative interference. Writers wanted the series to explore espionage and satire, while executives demanded it stay kid-friendly. Scripts filled with dry humor about government bureaucracy were rewritten into chase scenes and silly gadgets. Voice actor Lenny Weinrib carried the role with gusto, improvising entire scenes to fill gaps in dialogue. Censors also interfered, cutting jokes about surveillance that hit too close to political scandals of the era. What survived was a Frankenstein's blend of spy parody and slapstick comedy. The show was canceled after a single season, but left behind a loyal cult following that saw potential in its weirdness. Inch-High Private Eye remains the smallest detective with the biggest cult legend of the 70s. Number 2. The New Shmoo, 1979. The 70s loved bizarre hybrids, and nothing embodied that chaos like The New Shmoo. Based on Al Cap's shape-shifting comic, Creature from Lil Abner, this Hanna-Barbera version turned the friendly blob into a crime-fighting companion for a team of teenagers. The Shmoo could transform into any object from helicopters to hairdryers, which made every episode feel like a fever dream. On paper, it sounded like a hit. In reality, it baffled viewers. The tone bounced between light-hearted adventure and surreal moral lessons. The Shmoo's innocent voice and elastic antics drew comparisons to Casper, but his random transformations gave the series an uncanny vibe. Critics couldn't tell if it was meant to be parody or pure nonsense. One magazine described it as Scooby-Doo meets Silly Putty at a disco. Behind the scenes, Hanna-Barbera had hoped to reignite nostalgia by reviving classic comic icons. But the Shmoo's shape-shifting proved a nightmare for animators. Every episode required dozens of transformation frames drawn by hand, each one slightly different. Production delays piled up and network executives grew restless. Rumors spread that entire episodes were re-edited just to fit the season deadline. The show ran briefly before being merged into the anthology Fred and Barney Meet the Shmoo, where it drowned in crossover chaos. Yet the New Shmoo never truly vanished. Fans remember it as the oddball experiment that bridged the innocence of the 50s with the psychedelia of the 70s. In its stretchy, clumsy way, it reflected the era perfectly strange, unpredictable, and weirdly sincere. Number 1. Laff-A-Lympics, 1977. Before crossover universes became Hollywood's favorite trick, Hanna-Barbera did it first, with Laff-A-Lympics, a sprawling cartoon Olympics featuring characters from nearly every franchise they owned. Scooby-Doo raced against Yogi Bear while Captain Caveman hurled boulders at Quick Draw McGraw. It was ambitious, hysterical, and completely insane. Audiences were dazzled by the sheer scale of it. Seeing dozens of familiar faces compete in absurd sports events felt like a television miracle. But beneath the fun chaos reigned. Animation departments across multiple productions had to coordinate character designs, voice actors, and scripts all at once. Each episode required meticulous planning just to keep the characters consistent in height and style. Behind the scenes, voice actors worked around the clock, performing dozens of characters in marathon sessions. Some collapsed mid-recording from exhaustion. The scriptwriters joked that they needed flowcharts just to track who won what event. Studio animators were overwhelmed, producing scenes faster than ever before while trying to keep deadlines tight before Saturday airings. Critics were divided. Some hailed it as a creative victory, while others dismissed it as product placement disguised as sport. Yet children adored it. The show sparked massive fan rivalries between Team Scooby and Team Yogi. Despite the chaos, Laff-A-Lympics became a cult favorite and remains a nostalgic powerhouse today. Laff-A-Lympics wasn't just a cartoon, it was a carnival of madness, a cosmic collision of mascots that captured the wild imagination of a decade where logic was optional and laughter was law. The 70s were a dreamlike decade where cartoons dared to be absurd, experimental, and sometimes unforgettable. From talking sharks to prehistoric detectives, these strange creations reflected a world in transition, unafraid to mix chaos with charm. Which one do you remember best, or did your favorite weird hero vanish from memory too? Like, share, and subscribe for more forgotten animation history.